We're reading through the Bible this year and hope you've been reading along. Now you're entering into the book of 1 Samuel. 1st and 2nd Samuel was originally written as one big book, and it was so big that it didn't fit on the scroll, so they separated into two books. 1st and 2nd Samuel, you'll be reading through that in the next couple weeks. Just some things to look for as you're going through it. It's kind of broken up into three major sections. The first section is chapters 1 through 7. You're going to read about someone named Samuel. Samuel didn't write the book because he dies halfway through the book. So someone else writes it, names it after him later. But it picks up right after the book of Judges. Remember, it repeated 4 times in the book of Judges. There was no king in Israel, and everybody did what was right in their own eyes. And so Samuel is raised up, right, as a prophet, as a leader in Israel. And the book begins with just the story of his life, of this wife who can't get pregnant. She desperately wants a child and is praying to the Lord, and how God answers that prayer. And chapter 2, she's singing this beautiful poem of praise to the Lord for blessing her with a child, and she gives birth to Samuel. She dedicates Samuel to the Lord at a place called Shiloh, and Samuel becomes one of the leaders. He becomes one of the rulers in the land. He's not a king, he's a prophet in the land. So the first 7 chapters, he's bringing the people back to the Lord, just calling them, worship the Lord your God, right? But the people of Israel, they start asking for a king. They say, all the other nations have a king. We want a king too. This makes Samuel angry. He actually starts kind of praying to the Lord about this, and God says, okay, well, if they want a king, I don't know if they know what they're asking for, but we'll give them a king. And so God grants them their wish. And then you move into that next section of the book, chapters 8 through 15. You're going to read about a man named Saul. Now, Saul he's good looking, he's tall, taller than everyone else, he's strong. Everyone loves Saul, but listen, he's got some major character flaws that are going to catch up to him later in the book. So Saul, he just starts at the top, but you're just going to see this downward spiral in his life. And Samuel warns the people, listen, if you're going to live this way, you're actually going to be kicked out of the land. And so chapter 16 to 31, moving into this last section of the book, you're introduced to this shepherd boy named David. Actually, chapter 16, David is selected, anointed, right? He's the least likely person to be picked by the Lord. He's small. He's the youngest kid. He's a shepherd boy. He doesn't have any status in the land, but God is looking at his heart. And he has just this tremendous trust and faith in the Lord. And so God says, that's the one that I want to see as king. And so this last section is Saul's downward spiral, his fall, and David's rise to become king. Saul gets jealous, starts hunting David. David's running for his life, but he's just waiting on the Lord during this time. And he's letting God work out his plan. So you're going to see that story in there. Saul eventually, a little spoiler alert here, he dies this death at the hands of the Philistines. Just a tragedy of an ending for Saul. But then you see David's rise to become king. And so that's the major 3 sections, looking at Samuel, looking at Saul, looking at David. And maybe as you're reading through it, you're going to see parts of your own story in there about maybe God's working on some character flaws in your own life. Maybe he's strengthening your faith like he did with David. Maybe there's this time of waiting. David was waiting on the promise of the Lord, and maybe you're in that waiting time. David wrote a lot of the Psalms during that time. But however God's going to use this, I'm confident that he will use this book to change your life. So excited for you as you're reading through 1 Samuel. We'll talk about 2 Samuel next time we're together. God bless.